Look how ready you all are. I love that. Welcome back to the SDG Action Zone. Well done. I'm Nadira Hira for you new faces, and I'm your moderator. And in that capacity, I am duty-bound to tell you to please post in our efforts to bring the UN to the world and the world to the UN. So the hashtags are hashtag SDG Action Zone, which is this amazing space that we're in, hashtag Act for SDGs, and hashtag For People for Planet. And with that, I am so excited to introduce our next session, Ehsaas, Partnering for Poverty Alleviation in Pakistan, which is a bit of poetry. You can clap for that. The Gates Foundation has been working in Pakistan for more than a decade, but over the last year, it's focused its efforts on Ehsaas, an ambitious multi-sectoral anti-poverty program announced earlier this year by Prime Minister Imran Khan to target interventions in nutrition, health, economic empowerment, and maternal and newborn child care. Together, the Gates Foundation and the government of Pakistan have designed a unique collaboration that aims to radically improve progress towards achieving SDGs 1, no poverty, 2, zero hunger, 3, good health and well-being, 5, gender equality, and 8, decent work and economic growth in a country of over 210 million people. And yesterday, Prime Minister Khan and Bill Gates signed the MOU officially declaring how they'll work together to alleviate poverty. You know what you're supposed to do. So today we're going to hear more about this new, exciting, and extensive new partnership. So, to our panelists. She is Special Assistant to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and Federal Minister of Pakistan's Poverty Alleviation and Social Safety Division. And she's had a truly distinguished career in healthcare and healthcare advocacy, including her current role as co-chair of WHO's High-Level Commission on Non-Communicable Diseases and being the founding chair of the UN Secretary General's Independent Accountability Panel for Women and Children's Health. Please welcome Dr. Sania Nishtar. He is co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Since founding Microsoft with Paul Allen in 1975 and leading it to great heights, he's spent the last decade focusing full-time, along with co-chair Melinda Gates, on his foundation's work to expand opportunity to the world's most disadvantaged people. Welcome, Bill Gates. And with that, Dr. Sania, why don't we start with you? Would you mind telling us a little bit more about the Ehsaas program and what inspired it?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for convening this, and thank you, Bill, for being here and for your support. Well, in terms of the inspiration, this is a program that our Prime Minister wanted to do. He is genuinely, very passionately concerned about people who've been left out of the mainstream. He is very, very sincere to lift people out of poverty, to do something for those who've been disadvantaged, and he challenged me to create a very large program. So he truly is the inspiration and the driving force behind it. In terms of what it is, Ehsaas is an umbrella initiative. It currently comprises 134 policies and programs. It's organized under 4 pillars. The first pillar centers on making the government system work for equality and addressing elite capture. The second one is safety net centered. The third one is allied to it, centered on jobs and livelihoods for the poor. And the fourth centers on human capital formation. It's a massive multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder initiative. The execution of this is the responsibility of 34 federal ministries and all the federating units. I have the honor of coordinating the program, plus executing 2 of the pillars, which is the safety net pillar and the jobs pillar. So there are a number of programs under those 2 pillars for which I have execution responsibility. And to roll this out, we've had to set up the foundations. So a budget was set aside, during a very financially austere environment, and that decision was taken by the Prime Minister. The Cabinet approved it. A new ministry was created, and all the fragmented institutions were placed under its control. There's proposal for a new constitutional amendment in the pipeline. We have done the procurement for a new digital payment system. There is a new governance and integrity policy to oversee the executing agencies which are involved in implementation of Ehsaas. we procured a new ERP and an allied business intelligence mechanism. So we laid out the foundations, but in terms of the programmatic side, it's very exciting because there are different programs targeting different pockets of disadvantaged population. For instance, there's a stream of support for the chronic poor. So previously, some of our chronic poor were getting cash out stipends, but now we've moved to ensure that they are digitally and financially included. So 7 million women are going to have bank accounts, access to mobile phones, and access to 500 very frugal digital hubs in remote areas.
That's incredible.
Then there are opportunities for them to graduate out of poverty, and there are tiered financing instruments for that. So there are interest-free loans and skills training for those who can step up. There are subsidized loans for those who can go a bit further. And then, of course, links to the commercial microfinance and links to an allied agriculture value chain ecosystem. So the idea is to incrementally graduate these poorest of the poor out of poverty, and that's one stream. Then the other stream, programmatic stream, is centered on an instrument which protects people from catastrophic risks. That's the first time our government has a social protection instrument of that nature. Then a third bucket of policies is for individuals who are disabled. So the Prime Minister has already announced, special incentives for those who, in jobs, in housing schemes, they have universal access to health. All the disabled in our country over the next 4 years are going to have universal access to health and a certain category of assistive devices. Then there is another window for the very specially marginalized, transgender, street children, those who suffer from drug abuse, and there are different institutional mechanisms for them. Then on the social protection and education side, we've announced 5 million scholarships and small stipends in the form of conditional cash transfers for education. Then there is, on the financial access to health care, health insurance for 10 million families. Then there's another special pocket of informal workers and there are tens of millions of informal workers. There was no mechanism to ensure minimum wage for them, no mechanism to include them in the social security sphere. There's a separate policy for those. There's a separate policy for the welfare of our workers abroad, a separate policy to expand the social security net in terms of pensions and entitlement subsequent to retirement. So there's a whole spectrum of policies that mutually reinforce each other, and work on them is ongoing at a very accelerated pace.
And extensive is not an overstatement in any way, shape, or form based on that. But Bill, you all have been working in Pakistan for over a decade. How does this initiative, or this program, that seems like an insufficient word, but how does this program fit into what you've done so far? And how do you see it actually working moving forward to expand your efforts?
Yeah, we work in Pakistan across all the areas that the foundation specializes in. Of course, people know very well our biggest area is health. And so they're getting the vaccine coverage up, improving the primary health care system is a big activity for us. And of course, finishing the polio eradication fits into that health bucket. We also do work in agriculture, sanitation, and financial services. Now, this overall program that was described includes things like the conditional transfer, so people are accessing the healthcare services in an appropriate way. But one of its underlying elements is the digital money. And that's something we believe in. Our financial services group has partners in Pakistan that we've been talking through this with. And we view this Ehsaas program as really driving the digital financial inclusion to critical mass, particularly because a lot of the initial recipients will be the poorest. Too often when we do digital financial inclusion, we find that you go to the urban area, you go to the well-off people, you'll end up with a gender gap between men and women. But when you have these kind of payments as one of the things that's going to get somebody into that mobile account right from the beginning, you probably have critical mass, and you have the kind of equity that is so key for us in that work.
It's just a dramatic leap forward on dramatic work that was already ongoing.
That's right. Pakistan's a very important country. It's great the Prime Minister has picked this and appointed Dr. Nishtar to drive it all.
So in that regard, this is an ambitious program, and again, that is an understatement. What are you prioritizing as you move forward, and what do you think the challenges are going to be specifically?
Well, we both, go ahead.
I love that they're both so excited.
Well, the digital financial services, I don't think there'll be a problem with that. How quickly we get it rolled out, making sure the fee structure is very low, the ease of use is very high. Those are things that you can constantly monitor and make sure you get right. If you take the best practices from all over the world, there are some very good ideas in this space that can be used to make sure this is done in a very equitable way.
So in terms of what I'm prioritizing, there are two things that I'm prioritizing. The first is the governance and integrity policy, because these programs are executed out of institutions, and if you can insulate institutions from rent-seeking, and if you can ensure that the frameworks of efficiency and accountability are there, then you can layer them up with any aspiration in terms of any programmatic aspiration. So governance and integrity and the culture of delivery is what I'm prioritizing, and I have the full backing of the Prime Minister in that regard. The second thing, which is a priority for me, is the One Window Gateway, because very soon we will have the One Window Ehsaas app alongside the web interface and a call center to back it up, because not everybody has access to smartphones.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I'm prioritizing the app and the One Window Gateway is because that provides the visibility of deployment of all the programs that I referred to. So the digital payment gateway, the window to access loans, the window to access all other services would be visible. And my sense is that when that gets up and running, it will be an incentive for different institutions to deliver quickly into the program. So it will have a cross-cutting effect. In terms of the second part of your question about the challenges, I don't want to list these as challenges, because I want to be constructive and positive about it. It's such an exciting program, such an exciting opportunity. But these are things that we are working around. One of them is the multi-sectoral character of this program. I remember the first time I worked in government was in 2013. And I thought that the government is one entity, but the government is not one entity. It's an archipelago of various institutions that inherently have a disincentive to collaborate.
That's a lovely way of describing it. It's the loveliest I can think of, actually.
And it is not and that's the same all over the world.
Yeah.
So whenever I've talked about this, there's this huge uproar of laughter from the room, because it's... So to create the incentives for collaboration, to create that culture of delivery around joint metrics and joint accountability is something that we're experimenting with, something that, so we're crossing the river as we feel the pebbles underneath us, as the Chinese say. And that's one thing we're grappling with. The second is how to engage the private sector constructively, because we cannot build agriculture value chains without the involvement of the private sector. We have this amazing Pakistani diaspora all over the world that want to contribute. There's huge and massive private sector expertise that can help us to secure supply chains, that can help inject efficiencies into public sector institutions. But the challenge is how to create the frameworks to allow them to contribute. So that's another thing that we're doing we've put up on our website a portal where everyone can contribute, and we'll see how to structure it formally. And then, of course, there are capacity constraints, which we're trying to overcome. And that is where the help of Bill, in fact, is so helpful, because the foundation, of course, has connections and expertise, and we have access to meta-analyses and technical information, and we can turn around studies quickly. So that part of the collaboration for me is extremely exciting and very, very useful and timely.
I have to say, I geek out when I hear about metrics, but in this moment I thought I'm probably not geeking out as much as Bill. So you've had amazing experience around the world in anti-poverty efforts. What other lessons do you think apply in this situation and might be particularly valuable in this effort?
Well, some of these countries that are higher up in the middle income tiers were kind of the pioneers of doing these payment programs. And so again, there are lessons about making sure how careful you are at qualifying who the recipients are. And then, building in when appropriate, the conditionality. In Pakistan, there's quite a range of vaccine coverage if you go through the country. Some of the states have been very good at raising the vaccine compliance, and some are behind on that. And a program like this can really help with that. To us, the key reason why childhood death has gone down in the world and in Pakistan is that these new vaccines have gotten out there, and safe delivery practices are being practiced more broadly. And so that's another element that we're very interested is to look as it's implemented in each of the states, what kind of health behaviors can you encourage by using that conditional transfer mechanism. Sometimes the word about these things gets out through women's groups. I think Ehsaas actually has an element which is encouraging these women's groups, women coming together and talking. That's a tool that's been very powerful in several other countries.
Absolutely. So I have to say, so much of the conversation we've been having this week, and especially in rooms like this, has been about how difficult it is to bring together partners like the two of you represent, and to keep them talking and to keep the communication lines open. And so I wonder, before we go into audience Q&A, if you could offer a bit of advice about how to make these partnerships successful, how to begin them, and then how to bring them to fruition.
So just before I answer that question about partnerships, I just want to build further on what Bill said about using the cash transfers as tools to, for lack of a better word, institutionalize certain conditionalities, with a positive outlook. And we're currently using the conditional cash transfers for education. Along with the Gates Foundation, we're now bringing a health and nutrition program. There is a pilot in the field to ascertain how family planning outcomes could be integrated. And more broadly, the transformation from just cash out to the digital financial inclusion also includes an element of labeling the cash transfers. So from February 2020 onwards, when the cash transfers will be given, we will have a recorded message in the Prime Minister's voice going out to 7 million families. He's so hugely popular.
Yeah, that helps.
And so well recognized. So messages talking about hand washing, about breastfeeding, about nutrition, about many other things that will help communities like that. So we're using every opportunity to use interventions for multiple outcomes. So the digital and financial inclusion and the transformation in the policy in the cash transfer program does not just help with gender empowerment and access to resources and access to loan windows and empowering women more broadly, it also helps to reinforce with multiple other endpoints.
Absolutely. So Bill, maybe I'll let you take the advice question, and actually particularly in the sense that it's so difficult sometimes to bring leaders along from the private sector in the way that you have brought yourself along and in the kind of example that you have set. So what advice might you offer, not just on the communication or the partnership building, but also on, for those of us within organizations where we would like our leaders to be more like you in this respect, and be more supportive of the SDGs and these issues to get on board?
Well, as soon as the Prime Minister got into office, I had a chance to talk with them. You know, I may be lucky in terms of that access that we as a foundation have. He was the chief minister up in KP before he became Prime Minister, and that was an area where we needed a lot of action on health and polio type work. So I'd gotten to know him through that polio and health work. So it's pretty natural that when he was elected, we talked about, okay, how do we take that to a federal level, covering the entire country, and what new things should be possible. And so we went through where the foundation has expertise. On the financial services, we have a local Pakistani partner who we've had, I think, for over 5 years now, Karandaz, that's helped with all the technical aspects. So there was a sort of a ground had been laid, even though this is a broad MOU and fairly significant resources. It really goes back to previous work. So, you know, Pakistan's a very important country for us, and you know, so we've been patient at seeing where do the government's priorities and ours fit together, and it is impressive given the financial constraints how this is being prioritized.
Mm-hmm. Actually, let's take some questions from the floor. Where are my mic runners? We'll take one right here.
Hi, thank you very much. How do your long-term priorities in Pakistan align with the work of the Ehsaas
Can I have
program?
you do this a bit more?
Sorry, how do your long-term priorities in Pakistan align with the work of the Ehsaas program?
Well, in the long run, all development, you know, everything is a tactic to try to help get incomes up. You know, all the measures, nutrition, health, correlate to income growth. Now, which one you invest in to cause the other ones to happen, that's always the trick. We have a bias towards health as a very enabling, health and nutrition as key enabling elements to let you move up that ladder. And, you know, so it's great that that's an element of this overall social program, which in the end will be measured somewhat by the incomes impact that it has.
Excellent. Another question, please?
Well, I have to say, we partner there because I have a bias towards health as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Find partners who share your interests.
Yeah.
That is the takeaway here.
Appears to be a conspiracy.
Yes, good afternoon. This is a question for both of you. Bill, from the very beginning when you measured traffic, you've been all about measuring success and seeing what is achievable. And so the question for you is, in the short term, what are you really looking for success? What will you be able to measure that you'll know this program is working? And for you, ma'am, the same question really. If you look at this 2 years, 3 years from now, what will you specifically be looking at to know that this program is working?
So for me, it is very simple. Of course, there are various programmatic strands and different endpoints and an elaborate framework of metrics and monitoring and evaluation and all that. But for me, there's a very simple success factor. There are many expat Pakistanis sitting here, and when they start sending their charity through Ehsaas and have the visibility of their expenditure and have faith in the integrity of the program, that will be the success measure for me. And hopefully, with great humility, I'd like to commit that I will make sure that happens over the next 4 years.
Yeah, one of the nice things about when the payments get into a digital platform is as you get the right analytic tools, you can see what type of expenditures you're allowing. You know, are they sort of pro-family, school fees, better nutritious food type things? And, you know, you basically know who the citizen is and you see what's going on with their economic welfare including the entire family unit. And so the ability to do analytics on, okay, how has that changed their consumption patterns, is a lot better than the classic survey techniques. Now, you won't have everybody using digital for everything, so you'll still have to be doing those surveys. But the digital world is one where we should understand the impact of our programs far more quickly and with a greater degree of precision than when it's just cash money and we have to go back and do surveys.
And that data allows you to build a sort of exemplar for other nations, really, right, in the long term. Hopefully in the shorter term even. Go ahead.
So as Bill said, the hard outcomes disaggregated by gender, by income quintiles, by rural, urban, factoring in the lagging districts, as well as the trust factor and confidence in the system.
And trust is a dramatic issue because we forget that sometimes, but we've had so many conversations around trust here, and this creates that. Another question? Young fellow over here.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Tawfiq Rahim, Executive Director of GlobeSite. Congratulations again on this great partnership. Dr. Sania, obviously there's some great support both from yourself and the ministry and the government and from international organizations and foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But what do you see as the role and really the power of Pakistani organizations, nonprofits, academic institutes, others to get involved in the Ehsaas program?
So on the ministry's website, we've opened a portal called Pledge to Ehsaas. And we're encouraging all kinds of potential partners to contribute ideas and to contribute and to give us ideas on how they'd like to contribute. Of course, we have some ideas on how that can come to fruition. Expat Pakistanis can channel money through the payment systems once they're fully up and running. You can channel money through through Tahaffuz, which is the portal to protect people against catastrophic health expenditures. You can contribute to the wider pool. You can contribute technical expertise. We will soon, on that portal, put up specific calls for contributions, and then we can pair it up with those who want to contribute in a specific aspect. But just to say, at this moment, we're trying and testing how that ecosystem is going to look like. But in terms of where we're headed, we really want to institutionalize a culture where everyone, and especially expat Pakistanis, have an institutionalized mechanism of contributing.
And actually, maybe that's the last quick final thing because we're out of time. But on taking it to the everyone place, I actually read, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, that in 2020, the foundation will have a $200 million spend across all the programs in Pakistan. So just to underscore that, a $200 million spend across all the foundation programs in Pakistan. For those of us who cannot extend those kinds of resources, what is the call to action for folks in the room? Is there one thing everybody in here can do, whatever their background, whatever their income level, to support efforts like this?
Well, I think this links back to my response to the previous question. Of course, it's not just money, but you can contribute in a variety of different ways. We are learning how to institutionalize that. I think by next year, when we come to the General Assembly, we'll have more concrete information to share.
Is that a commitment?
Absolutely. Bill, is that from your side too?
Sure. You know what?
You can clap for that. Any call to actions to close us out?
Well, the health indicators have improved, and this is part of a partnership to try to accelerate those. So we're very optimistic.
So support it. With that, a huge round of applause for Dr. Sania Nishtar and Bill Gates. Thank you, and thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, and we got you out on time.